Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Michael Finney. Today, I am joined by Ian, Cedar, and Mike of Raconteur Press. Would you all like to say hello?
This is Ian. Hello.
This is Cedar. Hello.
I'm Mike, pen name Spearman Burke. Hey, gang.
Excellent. This has gone well. Can we hear about maybe some of your backgrounds, the things that you all do, maybe not necessarily get into Rac Press specifically, but maybe, your creative streaks and how you met each other. That might be interesting.
My name's Ian McMurtrie. I write and publish as LawDog. I've been about 25 years semi-famous on the internet in certain circles. I was born and raised overseas. Came to the States when I was 16. I've been in the Army. I did a 26-year career in law enforcement and decided I hadn't had enough stress, so I might as well be a publisher.
Love it.
And I'm Cedar Sanderson. I've been a lot of things, but currently I am an author, an artist, and I had stepped away from having a day job earlier this year, so that is how I'm making my living. And as for how I met these people, I do believe I met Ian at LibertyCon, and I met Mike at another convention, and I kind of got roped into Raconteur Press a couple years back, and the rest of it, well, we'll cover that later.
Actually, she met me at LibertyCon. She met my lady at LTUE, and my lady said, "Oh, I like her, we'll keep her."
Mike?
I don't know if I can top that. I'm not being kept by anyone. Like I said, thank you. I am a retired Marine after about 26 years and used my GI Bill to get a degree in English Lit and Creative Writing, where I realized it pretty much taught me nothing about storytelling. Fortunately, I also minored in theater, which pretty much taught me a ton about storytelling. So those of you wanting college degrees in how to write, I don't recommend writing courses. How I came across Raconteur Press, after I graduated, I was always looking for, short fiction publishers. And I recall actually writing into the Writer Dojo once and asking if they knew of any small fiction, short fiction publishers that didn't want to make me throw up in my hands and rub it in my face. And they didn't have an answer. But after a while, I came across Raconteur Press on LawDog's old blog, and I started following some of the videos and, the old NFO video. And at the time, there was a Three Moms of the Apocalypse on YouTube as well. And kind of cyber stalking them to see if they were people I wanted to work with. And I realized, okay, when you watch the videos, Jim Curtis, who is not a member of the press, but is in our orbit, and Ian both come across as very much as like Louis L'Amour characters to me. And I always wanted to be in a Louis L'Amour novel, so I figured I'd fit in with these guys. And and so I kind of backdoored the whole thing. I got my buddy Nick Nethery to actually submit. He was retiring from the Army. He submitted a request to come on as an intern to them. And they immediately jumped on it. And I kind of rode his coattails. And we all met up in MarsCon in person a couple years ago. Was it 2 years ago, MarsCon? And,
yeah.
And Nick was already on board as a intern. And what I didn't realize at the time was that was also MarsCon that year was my interview process until Ian showed up to my house one day in a white van and asked me if his handkerchief looked like chloroform. So, now I am an editor and a writer with Raconteur Press.
Well, very interesting backgrounds. I love the idea of LawDog's Law Blog. That is a fantastic title for it, really, you know.
I've been running that blog was till I got cross-threaded with my internet service provider. Or what is it? I don't know.
It was the hosting,
Thank you.
we will have the blog back up as soon as I have a spare spoon.
And
He is on Substack. He is on Substack now.
Yeah.
Yes.
The old blog was fairly popular. I was on a whole bunch of hit lists there for a while.
So give us maybe, I don't want to say origin story, but, you know, you mentioned earlier you decided to give yourself a whole new level of stress with publishing. Why? Why did you choose to do this?
There was a dare.
There was actually, I got bet. The first book I ever published went to number 84 on Amazon, and number 1 in the broad humor category. So I had some chops as a writer, and I was on Facebook writing little snippets. And a friend of mine, I was born on the island of Malta, and I'm fairly proud of that little island. And a friend of mine asked, what would have happened if the Germans had been smart and invaded Malta instead of Crete during World War II? Well, that triggered my pride, and I wrote this thread on what a bad idea that would have been. And it went on for a week or more, with people just chiming in and me answering. And somebody finally asked, you know, I want to write about this. I want to write a story about Malta. You know, what you have painted. I want to write. The hell was that?
Just went dark. It's fine.
Okay. And then a whole bunch of other people said, yes, I'm in too. Well, I don't people well, and I've never been a publisher. So it's like there's no way that I can put together an anthology. And even if I did, I know people well enough that there's not going to be enough stories for an anthology. Well, Jonna heard me grousing about it. Jonna Hayden is now our
production manager. But I was in her shop pacing, because that's what I do when I'm thinking. And she said, I'm hungry, let's go to lunch. Went to lunch, I'm checking Facebook, and people are still, you know, I want to write a story about Malta. I'm saying, fine, you don't have to talk to me, write your story. Jonna said, ask how many people will send you a story. Then put your phone down, eat your chicken fried steak, and when we're done, take a look at how many requests you get. I said, okay. I said, all right, no BSing. How many people actually want to give me a story? So I put the phone down, ate a chicken fried steak and the mashed potatoes and the cream and the corn, picked the phone back up. I had over 60 responses. I figured, all right, we'll do this one. We'll do Go to Malta, one book.
We're going to do one book.
I'm just going to do one book. Well, I started reading the stories. And we got a lot, 60 plus people said they would turn in a story.
We got about 40, I think, for the first one.
No, we got 106.
Did we really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm looking at these 100 plus stories about Malta, and I can't pick 10. There's more than 10. All right, to hell with it. Okay, we'll do 2 books. We'll do 10 stories in the first one, we'll do 10 stories in the second one, then y'all go away and leave me alone. So we published Ghosts of Malta, and it shot up. The Amazon loved Ghosts of Malta. And then we published Knights of Malta. And I opened up the submission software or submissions email to shut it down, and we had another 120 stories come in.
I know there were a lot. I wasn't as involved at that point.
All right,
other than having written him a story.
We'll do a third one. So
this is what you get for not having a closing date on your submissions.
I've learned.
I was not a publisher. I did not realize you needed a closing date. So we published Saints of Malta. I think it was Saints of Malta. And I still hadn't shut the email down. So I go in to shut it down, and there's another 40 stories in it. It's like, all right, I guess we're a publisher now.
I got looped in somewhere in there because I was the one of the lot of us that had before been a publisher, had wrangled anthologies. But more to the point, and what I wound up becoming for the press, is I had done book cover design. I have a background in graphic design and art. And the importance of having a good cover was realized quickly because the original covers for the multi-books were not bad, but they weren't right for the books themselves. They were wrong for the genre.
Yeah, I did not realize that covers had to be genre specific. Again, I'm not a publisher. I'm a knuckle dragger who wandered into this. And I did not realize at the time that what the cover tells you what's in the book. And the covers for the original Malta series are glorious, but what they say is travelogue. They don't say anthology, they say travelogue.
Right. They don't say anything about science fiction, fantasy, ghost stories, and any of the wild weirdness that were in those books.
And even though the cover was wrong for the genre, we still broke some records with those books. And I was sitting there, and we'd gotten the 4 Maltas done. And then a friend of ours had walked in and was telling me about Maggie Hogarth. And I have an overdeveloped sense of honor. And this friend was telling us about Maggie Hogarth and how she took on Games Workshop for Space Marines and beat them at their own game. And that opened up the field for people to publish Space Marine anthologies, and then never got invited to any of them. Well, that triggered how dare they? All right, tell Maggie if she's got stories, we'll do a Space Marines anthology.
Lesson here, everybody, is just don't trigger Ian. Please, it creates more work for the rest of us.
And then once we got the first Space Marines, and then somebody asked, I was at a Nauticon, and people were getting me very, very drunk. And I agreed.
This may or may not have been on purpose.
Yes, I while intoxicated, I agreed to Space Cowboys.
Well, that's a legal obligation, really.
When I sobered up, they told me, we're doing Space Cowboys. We are? Yeah, you agreed to it. Son of a... Okay. I figured for every 10 people who swear they're going to send you a story, you'll get one. Apparently, the people we run around are as good as their word, because every time in the early days, every time we opened up a call, we got swamped. We always wound up with more good stories, more than 10 good stories.
And the initial way that we dealt with this was by doing more than one volume of an anthology.
I didn't know any better.
Well, that snowballed, so we can't do that anymore. But I want to take a step back and set the stage a little bit for why some of this happened, because I've been hanging around the publishing industry since about 2000 and was told repeatedly in the early days of my career as a writer that there was no longer a market for short fiction. And the people telling me that were not completely wrong. The markets, the big days of the pulp magazines and being able to write short stories and sell them and actually make a living just writing short stories, which in the golden age was possible, that had long since passed. We're down to, I think, at this point, 3 magazines, and their contract terms are questionable, to say the least.
No kidding.
So what happened is that a lot of authors, especially new authors, start by writing short stories, only they don't have any place to sell those. So they're left kind of dangling of they either have to learn how to write novels without having the experience of writing shorts first, which winds up with writing short stories is a really good way to learn how to write. They're not the same as writing novels, but they do give you that time in the trenches that will lead to being able to write better novels.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yes. So not having a market for short fiction was a problem for the novelists. So then when Raconteur Press suddenly popped up, and we made it a point from the beginning to make sure that people got paid.
Yes.
We do a royalty share system because we couldn't afford to pay people right out of the box. But what we could do, and we have done, is build the hype and market the heck out of what we do because we want our authors to get paid. So suddenly there's a short fiction market, and we're not the only ones out there, but there are times it feels like it. So this means we get a lot of short fiction submitted to us and a lot of really high quality short fiction. So this is why Raconteur Press became what it did so quickly, because there was a crying need for short fiction markets.
Also, I'm a detective. In the Army, in the military, and government work after the military, I was intel. So I want to know why. I want to get in there. I want to know why. So everybody was telling me anthologies don't sell. They're a loss leader. Don't do anthologies. So it's okay. Why? I'd go to a con and I'd sit down with the publisher and say, all right, here's a cocktail. Why don't tell me about anthologies? They tell me, well, they don't sell. Okay, are you marketing? No, we don't bother marketing because they don't sell. Why would you market something that doesn't sell? Oh, okay. So you don't market them. You consider them a loss leader, and you treat them as a loss leader, and you wonder why they're a loss leader. Oh, yeah. Good enough. Hope you enjoyed your cocktail. There's always been a market for short fiction. But if you treat it like it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail. We don't. And I'm from the get-go, I get very passionate about certain things. And from the get-go, what I've been saying is it must be entertaining, all else is negotiable. I just want entertaining stories. The rest of the cultural BS, I don't care about. Send us entertaining stories that people want to read, and everything else we can discuss.
So the next question that people ask is, well, how do you make money? And
I don't.
The answer to that is you do. It's just complicated. The answer to that is what we're using the short fiction for is the farm team. We are pulling some fantastic novelists out of the short story writers, and we have started to publish novels and boys' books, which is a whole other topic that we could get into, but I can spend way too long talking about that.
Also,
but the point is that Raconteur Press's growth started with the shorts, and now as we're seeing the maturing writers that are writing fantastic novels, we're starting to bring those people on board, and we're publishing their novels.
Also, we're teaching young authors how to be authors.
Yes, that's part of the short story experience.
You have to treat. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Well,
Mike.
I was just going to say, as one of the aspiring authors, coming at it from my perspective, one of the things the press has provided is a target, right? I mean, it's one thing to sit there and go, I'm going to write a short story. And the problem with just saying that, right, and submitting to, and if you can hear a bird in the background, I apologize.
Oh, that's fine.
Hey, Bubbles.
Bubbles' master plan for world domination.
She's getting on any kind of media she can. She might have her own Twitter account if I'm not careful. Anyway, like if you submit to Writers of the Future, which is great, by the way, it leaves you wide open. But the good thing about seeing themes and, hey, this is what we want out of your story is when you narrow your left and right lateral limits, it actually gives you a good environment to, use your creativity to come up with stuff. And I think it's gotten a lot of people interested in writing short fiction and submitting. And what I've discovered from the editor side of the house, of us doing that is, interacting with these authors are like little mini interviews. We discover how they write. We discover if they turn in their work on time. We discover how they respond to rejection. We discover, if there's someone we have to track down all the time. You know what I mean? We're discovering whether or not we want to work with a lot of these authors.
That's something that you don't see across the board in media right now, is what you guys are calling Farm Club, the music industry called A&R, artist and repertoire, really developing people's skills and being able to combine those skills and turn them into, product that the market wants. I don't want to distill everything down to widgets on the shelf, but at the same time, that process worked for a long time, and I don't see it from traditional publishing, the big houses right now. I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing that.
If you want to make money out of this business as an author, you have to treat it as a business. So a large part of what we do is we're teaching young authors, hey, deadlines mean something. And coming from me, I realized recently that's kind of a little hypocritical. But if there's a deadline, you got to hit it.
Right.
If you submit from an email, submit your manuscript from an email, check your email.
Stop changing your email address.
Yeah, a lot of authors don't. They treat this as a fainting couch. Lord Byron BS. No, you've got to be on time. You got to be easy to work with. You have to check your emails so that you are, I won't say a joy to work with, but not a pain in the butt to work with for your publisher.
It's very much like what I told my son 4 or 5 years ago when he was just entering the workforce as a teenager. I'm like, kid, if you show up and if you're on time and you're reliable, you will do just fine with whatever job it is that you're going to wind up with. And it's the same for authors. You have to show up with a story and show up on time and respond to editors on time. Doesn't mean you have to accept all of the editors' changes, but it does mean that you have to respond to it, and you can't take a pet when things are suggested that you change in your story. And it's the same for rejection, actually. If your story has been rejected, you can't fall apart and let it be the end of the world. You either figure out if there was something wrong with the story, or far more likely that there wasn't room for that story in that anthology, and there's nothing wrong with it. And you just have to carry on, write the next story, and get on with life.
My Rita has a quote that she stole from Neil Gaiman. And I poo-pooed it when she first said it. But she says that an author, especially a young author, there are three things. You've got to provide good stories. You've got to be under deadline. You got to be easy to work with. Pick two of them. You don't have to be all three. If you are known for good stories, you're easy to work with, you can miss the deadline.
Once in a while.
If you're known to write a good story on time, you can be a bit of a pill to work with. So based on what Rita, this thing that Rita's holding to, that's what we're trying to teach our authors.
And nothing will get you to put your money where your mouth is by getting rejected by the very same publisher that you work for. So.
Fatality.
Yes.
Yeah, it happens, gang, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. So my perspective is a little bit different on this because I've been writing for a while. At this point, I have 14 novels. I don't know how many short stories out there, a number of illustrated books, either children's books, coloring books, or otherwise. So I've literally been doing everything on my own. I own my own publishing imprint, and I have been teaching how to self-publish through a blog called the Mad Genius Club, along with about a dozen other writers that are either completely self-published or hybrids. And still, I'm here with Raconteur Press, wholly behind this company that is a publisher. And the reason for that is that not every author is able to do what I do. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people that don't have the art background or don't have the ability or the patience to learn how to do their own covers. So for them, being able to come to a publisher and being able to say, okay, I can't do these things. And basically what we're doing is we're partnering up with these authors and giving them the tools to succeed that they can't necessarily come up with on their own. A very different approach than most traditional publishers have. And I am thinking that as we break the paradigm, we may actually show the way for others to follow in our footsteps.
I love paradigms. I love the sound they make when they shatter.
I'm really into it. In terms of philosophy, I think you guys are on the right track. And as far as what I'm hearing, what do I know? I'm not a publisher. I'm not dealing with a stable of writers and authors, but
it sounds like you have an interesting background of your own, Michael.
Well, I'm a citizen, but we do things out in the world sometimes. What I haven't heard yet is some specifics on timelines. I know you start with the anthologies, and then you've kind of progressed into the novels, and it sounds like stories for young men, for boys, and the rest.
Okay, there's a hell of a story there. My entire leadership is based on small units. In the military, government, small units, and the sheriff's office, small agencies, small units. And I'm used to the way we built things was we would get a team together, and then we would push the team till it broke, fix what broke, push it harder, and until it breaks again, and fix until you can basically, in our case, fall down a flight of stairs and publish an anthology on the way down. When we decided that yes, we're going to be a publisher, Rita and I. All right, we're going to be a publisher. All right, I only know small teams. So we decided we would publish anthologies first. We'd spend 2 years publishing anthologies. So we made the announcement that we would be doing an anthology every 2 weeks.
Wow.
And trust me, everybody told me how insane that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2024, we published 26 anthologies. And this was, doing it fast, was stress testing the system. And we ran across a couple of problems, fixed the problems, and drove on. 2025, we are well on the way to doing another 26, at least one every 2 weeks.
And in addition to that, we will have done a half a dozen novels by the end of the year.
After 2024, when we figure, okay, we know how to do anthologies. We've got this part down. All right, we're going to do the same thing with novels. So John Van Stryke gave us a novel, and we started, we're doing novels. We're doing novels hard. At the same time, we're still doing an anthology every 2 weeks. We're stress testing the system even more.
Oh, and by the way, about this time, I pitched to Ian that we should be doing boys' books because so when I say boys' books, I'm not just talking about boys, because when I was a girl, the boys' books were what I wanted to read. So even calling them boys' books, I know that girls like me are going, ooh, and their ears are perking up. But the real problem is, from my background of having been a children's librarian many years ago, there are no good, solid books for boys being published currently, or there weren't until we started. Mm-hmm. So 2025 was anthologies, boys' books, and novels. And the novelists were handpicked and told that they were going to be guinea pigs because we're learning
Lab rats
with their help. So coming into 2026, we are slowing it down a little bit on the anthologies. We will only be doing 16 anthologies. Only. And
but we're kicking the novels into high gear. We'll be doing 2 novels a month, which, again, they're telling me it's insane. But the boys' books came about. There was this big hoofera a year or so back that Cedar brought to my attention. There are no boys' books. And, okay, look around. There are no boys' books. Well, we had a LibertyCon. We were having our What's New at Raconteur Press at LibertyCon. I said, we're looking at boys' books. And the entire audience lost their minds over the boys' books announcements more than they did over the novels.
Because there are people that are publishing novels and no one was publishing boys' books.
And the part that really cemented it was out in the hall afterwards, the number of ladies that walked up and said, oh my God, I loved the boys' books when I was growing up. Thank you. It's like, all right, I guess we're doing boys' books.
So on top of 2 novels a month, 16 anthologies, we will be publishing 12 boys' books in 2026.
Wow.
We are we will have done, by the end of this year, we will have done at least a half a dozen boys' books. I'm losing track in my head of how many we've done already.
Well, let's make sure to mention Graham Bradley. Shout out.
Yes, absolutely. Graham Bradley's Fossil Force. So, and with the boys' books, we have an open call, and it will stay open for boys' novels. We're looking mostly for middle grade novels. We are not ever going to be calling these young adult, even though sometimes the protagonists can be teenagers, because young adult as a genre it means different things than what we are doing. So, Graham Bradley's book is a fantastic example of he brought it to us and we pounced on it. And I mean, the fact that he is the father of 2 boys and his boys helped him write that, well, that just is the gravy on top. I mean, it is. We have had some absolutely amazing boys' books brought to us.
Our very first boys' book was from Dave Freer, Storm Dragon.
Yeah, that was.
Nominated for Prometheus Award
twice.
Which
the same book is up for 2 different Prometheus
They had
awards.
to drag me out from under the bed when that announcement came out. Holy God.
Dave has won a Prometheus before with his book Cloud Castle.
Yes, but we haven't.
There are awards that don't mean much. That one means things.
Well, and we keep. Again, I'm not a publisher. I don't know this business.
Yes, you are.
I mean,
you might not have started that way, but
I don't know this business. So when Tangent Online contacted us and said that one of our anthologies, every story in it was recommended, I thought, oh, that's nice.
And that had never happened before.
Yeah, they said, no, Ian, that's never happened before. And back under the bed.
So 2026 will be a very busy year for Raconteur Press.
Yeah.
And
we reserve to write to break the machine and make adjustments next year.
Sure.
So as far as open calls go, in 2026, all of the open calls for anthologies are available both on our Substack and our website. There are dates with the open calls. There are dates when the call will open. There are dates when the call will close. The dates that are there for when the anthology will publish and for when the contracts will be sent out, which is prior to publishing, obviously. Although I shouldn't say obviously, because I've worked for an anthology or 2 in the past where it didn't work that way.
For us, it's obvious.
Those dates for us mean things.
Yes.
Yeah. Jonna Hayden, that we referred to before, our production manager, she keeps us on time, on target, on schedule. And if we put out a date, we will stick with it. So as far as open calls for novels, currently the open calls for novels is only to authors that have published with us before.
or known authors, because we've got a couple.
And we do have some
authors.
people that we have invited, we've discussed with, to bring on board that have known track record. So the plan is that eventually, probably in 2027, there will be a general open call for novelists for Raconteur Press. But currently it looks like we're going to fill our dance card with invites and people that we're already currently working with.
Yes.
The boys' books, however, are an open call.
Very cool. So let's get into some of the logistics here. You guys are primarily online, only online. Are you getting brick and mortar distribution? I know you're doing some production, print production in some capacity. Let's hear about that.
So print production right now is print on demand. Currently, we're only doing paperbacks. There will be hardcovers coming this coming year. We are right now looking into creating box sets with slipcovers. So there will be some interesting box sets coming soon that will incorporate things like we have series of anthologies, the Moggies in Space series, Space Cowboys, Space Marines, but also we will be looking at box sets of the boys' novels to be able to sell them that way. The only brick and mortar is currently at the Raconteur Press shop.
Walmart's got ours, but they don't.
So the ones that are at Walmart are distributed through Draft to Digital, and there's a bare handful of them. There will be more of those coming, but they will only be the novels and the boys' books, because one of the things that we learned as we were doing this is that the distribution and making sure that we were getting royalty breakouts properly for our authors, because again, priority is getting authors paid. Doing that with the anthologies limits us to Amazon right now.
Gotcha. To
be able to handle that properly, and that because it's a priority of making sure people get paid.
Yes.
So there will be some changes. We do not currently have any plans to, and probably will not do massive print runs. Print offset is expensive, high volume, and in my opinion, unnecessary. Getting books into bookstores is becoming more and more complicated with Baker and Taylor going away.
Yeah.
What we will be focused on is getting books into libraries.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yes, and that's both ebook, because Amazon opened up their Kindle Unlimited eligibility to allow for distribution into public libraries through Overdrive.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yes, this is a recent development. We're very excited about it because we are heavily involved with our local libraries here, and will continue to become more so as we, especially with the children's books. Literacy programs in schools and libraries go hand in hand. So we are going to be getting our books able to be distributed through Overdrive and into public libraries. Because from my experience, and I think we're seeing this with the press as well, ebooks sell more than print books.
Unfortunately.
Now, here's the funny thing. For me, this is purely just one man's observations. My audiobooks perform the best. The print, actual physicals, next, and then ebooks. It wasn't until I got into doing short fiction that my ebooks started to do some numbers comparatively. But the thing about what I've had in the past was heavily pictorial, I don't know, nonfiction, let's say.
Yes. And that makes perfect sense to me, because I note that as well in what I've done for nonfiction, for children's books in particularly. You're going to see better sales in print books, and I don't have a lot of experience with the nonfiction aside from that. But the other thing too is that with fiction, ebooks is where it's at, and audiobooks. However, audiobooks is a whole other layer of complexity that we're still navigating through.
I'm currently, I've been researching because, again, detective intel. I've been researching, and audiobooks annoy me. And I'm trying, when I get annoyed, I tend to start breaking things.
Like paradigms.
I've released 11 audiobooks this year. My goal is to put out 12.
Now, once we can fall down a flight of stairs, publish an anthology, a novel, and a boys book on the way down, then we're going to start breaking into audiobooks. And much like everything else, we're going to do it our way.
So the problem with audiobooks and anthologies is making sure that authors get paid. And the company that we work with that does our royalty sharing, PubShare, doesn't currently offer an audiobook option.
Interesting.
He's said in the past that he is working on it, and we had been hoping that that would come to fruition in the last couple of years, and it has not. So we're looking at other avenues, but again, making sure that authors get paid, making sure that voice talent gets paid, those are things that we need to have hammered out before we actually start production.
Absolutely.
So it's slowed us down as far as we're feeling our way into the best way to make this happen and still make sure that everybody gets paid. Because one of the things that's been suggested is reading things out loud and putting it up on YouTube. I know there's people that do that. I'm dubious about how royalties would work in that situation.
Yeah. I have no idea how you would even do that on YouTube.
Right, and that was exactly my response to it. Is I need to make sure that my authors are getting what is coming to them, and so we're looking at voice talent that's willing to work with us on a royalty share basis, and that it may be what we do.
Actually, I found some.
Yeah,
I found voice talent. I found production guys. I've got the people, I just don't have the logistics yet.
Yeah.
And one of the things that guides Raconteur Press, or guides me, is I did not have a good experience with semi-traditional publishing on my first couple of books. Not a good experience at all. And so again, started investigating, and authors have not been well treated by traditional publishing, which is another paradigm that we are going to change if it hair lips every cannibal in the Congo.
And that's a historical thing. So I'm a little bit of a historian into even pre-Pulp, into the Victorian era, and the history of publishing and how it works with authors and illustrators. Speaking as the illustrator, has been. It's not been a partnership for much of the history of it. So it's one of those things where we're trying to proceed cautiously.
We are treating our authors as people and not things to be milked and then thrown away. Well, audiobooks is the same way. I want to make sure that when we start audiobooks that everybody's getting treated fairly. The voice talent, everybody. The authors, the voice talent, everybody needs to get treated fairly. Everybody needs to get a fair cut. The logistics of that, I'm going to clear some other stuff off my plate before we get into that.
Reasonable. So let us think about wild desires. If there are things, I know we've kind of talked about the schedule for next year and going into 2027, but man, you guys are breakneck pace and workload, and I sense that you have an imagination for where things could go or where you would like them to go, even beyond just the audiobook discussion. There's all sorts of things out there to make and provide.
Yes, there are.
Quite honestly, I want to stand in the wreckage of a ruined traditional publishing and giggle. Yes, I would like to be able to pay myself a salary. I would like to pay my people a salary. It would be lovely. In the future, over the next 5 years, Raconteur Press is going to solidify a grip on the publishing industry. We are going to introduce ways of doing things that the rest of the publishing industry can either get on board and imitate or fall behind in the dust. And I don't care which one they choose. We're going to change the way that publishing treats everybody, the way publishing treats the readers, the authors. There's going to be a change. It will happen, or you'll fall in the dust. Don't care. Other than that, I'd like a full 6 hours of sleep at night.
For me, and what I've been talking about, and my experiment Burke is actually part of the genesis of this. I've been talking about cradle to grave reading, teaching children to love reading from the beginning. Mike and I worked together on a picture book. So appealing to readers from the very beginning, and then with the middle grade books, teaching them that they don't have to endure what's assigned to them at school, that there's reading out there that's fun, and that reading a book is totally different than playing a video game or watching a film. This is letting your imagination run wild off of the page, because it's a completely different experience as far as being entertained and imagining, and then continuing to provide them with reading material throughout the rest of their lives. That is what I'd like to see from Raconteur Press, is being able to take our picture books, our children's books, and then all the way up through the anthologies and novels to be able to... We are losing readers because the young people are not given books that inspire them to want to keep reading. So they fall away from reading and they go off into other ways of being entertained. And we always want to be entertained, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, storytelling takes so many different facets, from the audio, from the interactive with your video games and your role-playing games, but there's also books. And I don't want to lose books because they're no longer considered the in thing or profitable or whatever it is that's making the book publishing industry die off the way it has been. So I have this very aspirational thing of a legacy of keeping books and reading alive for the next generation.
One of our editors, Nick Nethery, has 4 sons. And he and I were talking recently, and he was just telling me how his older boys seem resistant to picking up a book and reading because school has made it not fun.
Yes.
And, so that's one of the things that drives us, I think, in this endeavor, is to make it fun again, something you seek out doing. I can just remember reading at a very young age and loving it. All the way into my time as a young infantryman in the Marine Corps, we were putting paperbacks into plastic bags and trading them with each other out in the jungle, So yeah, creating that lifetime reader is really one of our, aspirational goals.
Love it. Are there any things that we have not addressed or talk about through the rest of the conversation that you feel must be expressed, that you have to get out of your mind, or that I didn't prompt you to talk about?
That's on me. Let's not go there, because my consider could tell you, don't get Ian started.
Oh, well, and I think one of the things that makes Raconteur Press, I think, interesting is we're not going off of somebody else's model. We're kind of making it up as we go along.
I didn't realize there were models.
The ones you're trying to change, Ian. Okay, come on, cannibals, hair lips. Remember that. Well, and I think that's it's a strength, but it also means we're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. Our attitude has been, we started for the past 2 years. We've had like what we call Raconteur Press retreats where all of us get together and kind of brainstorm the next year. And one of the things we talked about is, making the authors, treating the author like the customer and not necessarily the reader, right? Just to kind of change that dynamic and see how it affects our relationships with them.
And for me, my thing for the last, about a year and a half ago, I figured out that I could do something, and I started doing it and kind of asked for permission later. My goal was to make beautiful books. I wanted to set our books aside from other books out there. Why should you read a Raconteur Press book? What's special about this? Well, for one thing, we've got a bunch of phenomenal authors who write fantastic stories. But the thing that I could do to add value to these books was I could illustrate them, and that's what I've been doing. I've been doing the book covers for a couple of years now and pulling considerable weight of experience into that and making the books look like what we were trying to do, which is a pulp revival, bringing back the golden age of writing and reading. But now I get to put the illustrations into the books. With the anthologies, we add in fake advertisements. Well, they're mostly fake. There's a few real ones in there. But the idea was to make our books look different, and that would give readers a reason to keep coming back. And I think most of the staff has this attitude of, how can I make this better? The way we function as a company, there's no room for dead weight. You can't. You have to be dedicated and want to do this. So we have a very different attitude as a company.
When you're cranking out an anthology every 2 weeks, not pulling your weight is just not something we can. Sorry.
And we all share in the royalties. That's how we get paid. We get paid the same as our authors do. So for us, that means that we are as fully committed to making these books a success, every single one of them.
Beautiful. Well, guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed learning about Raconteur Press, learning about you guys, and also hearing the philosophy, which I think is a good one considering the landscape out there currently.
It's the only one I got, so I don't know if it's good or bad or indifferent, but it's the only one I got.
Michael, thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
It's been very, very much appreciated.
Absolutely. We'll talk again.